How's it going, everybody? My name is LuckyBunz. In today's video, we're going to be going through part 2 of the events for the month of January in Pokemon GO. Initially, we had a lot of missing information at the start of this month when I made the first video, but now that everything has actually been revealed, I wanted to go over it and get you guys up to speed. As always, timestamps are going to be linked down below, so feel free to skip around to anything that you're interested in. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, the currencies and bonuses are going to be that you get 2 free raid passes every single day. You're going to get extra Stardust from Rocket Battles, Grunts, and Leaders, and then you're also going to get extra Stardust from opening gifts. Now, since the initial video, Shadow Palkia has also replaced Heatran as the available Shadow Legendary from Giovanni using your Super Rocket Radar. This is now the best non-Mega Dragon-type attacker in the game, just barely beating Palkia Origin Form. Also, in terms of PvP relevance, it's currently ranked within the top 10 right now for the Open Master League. So assuming that you don't have an Origin version of Palkia with Spatial Rend, this could be a consideration for you. That said, with other options out there like Shadow Salamence, Garchomp, and Dragonite, I still don't view this as worthy enough, and I'm going to be personally stacking my Super Rocket Radar for the foreseeable future. If you guys want to know how to actually stack your Super Rocket Radars, then check out this video on screen right now. It's also going to be linked in the description down below. Following that, let's talk about the Legendary Flight event, and this is going to feature the Kanto Birds and Dynamax raid battles. So basically how this is going to work is that these legendary Pokemon are going to debut first in max hours. These take place every Monday from 6 to 7 p.m. local time. So as far as the rotation goes, we have Articuno on January 20th and Zapdos on January 27th, and then we also have Moltres on February 3rd. Now after each Monday, each of these respective legendary Pokemon will be available for the next week to hunt for max battles in general. So for example, Articuno will be available until the 27th at 6 p.m, and then Zapdos is going to go into rotation. Now as far as meta relevance goes for these Pokemon, for Articuno, if you don't have Gigantamax Lapras, this would be a good Pokemon to use for your Ice type for max battles. When it comes down to Zapdos, if you don't have Gigantamax Toxtricity, this would also be a good Pokemon to use for your Electric type team in max battles. And then finally, when it comes down to Gigantamax Moltres, yes, if you don't have Gigantamax Charizard, this would be a good option for the Fire type Pokemon. That being said though, when it comes down to Flying type Pokemon, Moltres is going to be the best Flying type to use for Dynamax raid battle since we don't have a Gmax eligible Pokemon just yet. So yes, this can definitely get outclassed in the future, but as of right now, these are going to be great additions to anybody's Dynamax raid teams, especially because you also have the chance to get them in their shiny forms. Now I do also want to mention that these Dynamax raids work a little bit differently than the Gigantamax raids. So for Gigantamax raids, you can actually have up to 40 trainers battling the Pokemon, but when it comes down to Dynamax raids, you can only have up to 4 trainers battling the Pokemon. Of course, this also means that these Pokemon aren't going to be as difficult to take down compared to Gigantamax Pokemon, so that's definitely a positive, I think, for smaller communities. With that being said though, you definitely want to make sure that you have the right Pokemon counters going up against these respective legendaries. I do have some good news though, because Niantic actually added a timed research each week leading up to these Pokemon debuts, and these are going to award you with free Dynamax Pokemon. So from January 17th to January 20th, you're going to have the research for Articuno, which is going to award you with Scorbunny, Beldum, and Charmander. From the 24th to the 27th, you're going to have the research for Zapdos, and this is going to award you a Drillbur, Cryogonal, and Grookey. And then finally, from January 31st to February 3rd, you're going to have the research for Moltres, which is going to award you a Squirtle, Krabby, and Sobble. You're also going to get 50 candy for each respective Pokemon, along with 7,500 Stardust and 500 Max Particles for completing the entire timed research. Oh, and on top of that, Max Move upgrades are also going to be 3/4 the cost, which is basically a 25% discount. So overall, it definitely seems like Niantic is trying really hard to get more casual players involved in the whole Dynamax system, and for a good reason. I mean, just on the Reddit alone, there is so much negative feedback and just complaints about the Dynamax system. Personally, I don't think it's actually that bad, but a lot of players really just don't want to participate in it. So when it comes down to these timed research quests, I think they're great starter packs for anybody who just hasn't participated in these Dynamax raids so far. I mean, the appeal here is getting yourself a legendary Pokemon, and there is also the possibility that we could place these legendary Pokemon at power spots, in which case you'll be able to earn 5 candy for doing that each time. Now there are limitations for legendary Pokemon in gyms, so it would make sense for Niantic to put one here as well, but if they don't for some reason, then this would definitely be a huge incentive to focus on these Pokemon. So when it comes down to these max hours, I would definitely take advantage of them if possible. That's probably going to be your best time to actually get other players together, so check Campfire for any local meetups around that time, and then you should be good to go. Next up, I want to talk about Shadow Ho-Oh. So this raid day just recently passed, and I'm sure some of you guys guys caught a lot of Shadow Ho-Oh. This was actually the first time that you could use remote raid passes to raid this Pokemon, and honestly, I think a lot of players went really hard on that. Considering that the shiny rate was also boosted to 1 out of 10 from 1 out of 20, the chance to get a shiny Shadow Ho-Oh was very high. Now on top of that, you were also able to TM to get Sacred Fire, the signature moveset for Ho-Oh, and also a legacy moveset that normally requires an elite charge TM. You could actually use charge TMs on any single Ho-Oh, it didn't have to be a Shadow version, to get Sacred Fire. So this was a huge event, guys. Honestly, a really big one that I hope a lot of people took advantage of. But now, after that event has ended, you might be wondering, well, I have all these Ho-Oh, like, should I power up any of them? Which ones are good? Should I purify it to get the hundo? There's a lot of questions that could be answered here, so I'm going to go over what you guys should be doing with these extra Shadow Ho-Oh that you got. So when it comes down to it, there are going to be multiple Shadow Pokemon that are going to be better than Shadow Ho-Oh, including just regular Reshiram by itself. So you have Shadow Heatran, Blaziken, Darmanitan, Moltres, Emboar, Entei, Chandelure, and even Charizard. That is just going to be better than Shadow Ho-Oh. So yeah, honestly, when it comes down to it, you have a lot of other options out there, but if you don't have any of those Shadow Pokemon, should you invest into a Shadow Ho-Oh as a Fire-type attacker? I think if you got a good IV spread, you should totally go for it. Shadow Ho-Oh is a great Pokemon to use against Rocket Grunts with Incinerate, so I do actually recommend investing into this Pokemon, but at the same time, if you wanted to hold on to your resources to invest into a Shadow Fire-type attacker that is a little bit better, all those Pokemon that I just mentioned are going to fit that category. Now with that being said though, that's not the only consideration for Shadow Ho-Oh, because it also has relevance in the Open Master League for PvP. This would typically require you to build it to level 50, so that's going to be a lot of extra large candy, and honestly, I don't think a lot of you guys probably have enough resources, including Stardust, to actually get it there. So if you are considering that, well, I mean, you would need to have a really good IV spread, right? Like, we're talking like 96, 98% IV with 15 attack. But if you actually were able to get yourself a 13, 13, 13 or higher, you could consider purifying this for the hundo. So I think a lot of people are probably going to fall into this boat here where they didn't get a good enough IV spread to use in the Open Master League, but they got a good enough IV spread to purify for that hundo. And hopefully by doing this, you also made sure to TM to get Sacred Fire during the event as well. If you didn't, you're going to have to use an Elite Charge TM, but honestly, if you have a hundo legendary that's relevant in the Open Master League, I still think it's worth it. It's honestly not a big downside, but I can definitely see how it's going to be a slap in the face for some players who missed out on that. Now keep in mind, if you decide to purify it, it's not going to have the same relevance as a Fire-type attacker in the Raid/Gym meta that is only the Shadow Ho-Oh. For any new players watching this right now, this is because Shadow Pokemon get a 20% boost of their attack, but also a 20% reduction in their defense. It's kind of to balance it out, but essentially the Shadow Pokemon are more powerful for just that reason alone. The IVs have very little to do with it. So when it comes down to it, you definitely have a lot of options here for your Shadow Ho-Oh. I would love to hear what you guys ended up deciding to do, whether you purified it, you kept it as a Shadow, you powered it up for the Master League. Just let me know in the comment section down below. Following that, let's go over the next event, which is going to be taking place from January 21st to January 26th. This is going to be the Steeled Resolve event. So as far as the bonuses go, you're going to be able to TM Frustration away on your Shadow Pokemon once again, kind of like an extended version of the Team Go Rocket Takeover event, which I think is pretty nice because there are always so many people, and honestly even myself falls into this category sometimes, who either forget to TM Frustration on their Shadow Pokemon or like they get something really good right after the event ends. That's always a little bit frustrating to me, but it looks like Niantic is going to give you a second chance, and I'm very happy to see that. So once again, you're going to be able to TM Frustration away on your Shadow Pokemon until the 26th. Do not forget that. Now, you might be asking yourself, what's the best way to actually get charge TMs? Because I ran out of all of them during the Rocket event. There's basically going to be two main strategies that I like to use. The first one is going to be from Go Battle League, the Win 2 reward. You have a strong chance of actually getting a charge TM this way. Now, the second way is going to be a much more consistent one, and that's going to be the guaranteed drop of charge TMs from Mega and 3-star raid battles. I'm going to cover the available raid Pokemon later on in the video, so stay tuned for that, but we actually have one more bonus, and that's going to be Magnetic Lure modules will attract Onix, Beldum, Shieldon, and Rookidee. Now, speaking of Rookidee, this is actually going to be the new debut Pokemon during this event, and it's going to evolve into its final evolution, Corviknight, which some of you guys may be familiar with from the Flying Taxi from Sword and Shield, or just from Sword and Shield in general. This is also going to have a Gigantamax form in the future, so I mean, getting some candy on this Pokemon right now would not be a bad idea. It's also expected to be extremely meta relevant in both the Great League and Ultra League metas with the legacy moveset Iron Head. Ideally, the best way to hunt from these during this event is going to be from Magnetic Lure modules, despite them also being available from 2 kilometer eggs, but if you actually hatch a Pokemon like this, you're going to have to mirror trade this with somebody else, and you're probably not going to get a 0 attack IV spread, which is going to be really important to have for PvP. This is why Magnetic Lure Modules is going to be the preferred method to hunt this Pokemon. Now on top of that, we're also going to have some legacy moves that you guys can actually get during this event through evolution only. So we're going to have access to Machamp with Karate Chop, Feraligatr with Hydro Cannon, Quagsire with Aqua Tail, Licky with Body Slam, Corviknight with Iron Head, and then finally Clodsire with Mega Horn. Now as far as the wild encounters go, you're going to have access to Clefairy, Machop, Totodile, Marill, Hoppip, Paldean Wooper, Shieldon, Bunnelby, Carbink, and Mareanie. Every single one of those Pokemon except for Carbink does have the chance to be shiny. Now keep in mind, as far as the legacy moves go, you can't actually get access to regular Wooper or even a Lickitung from these wild Pokemon, so that is a bit unfortunate to see because that means you won't be able to get a good IV spread for those Pokemon either. Now like I mentioned with Rookidee, we're also going to have special 2km eggs featured during this event. The available Pokemon from this is going to be Shieldon, Carbink, Mareanie, and then Rookidee. As far as meta relevance goes, I don't think any of these are ideal to actually hatch from 2km eggs in terms of PvP IVs, so the only thing here that I would think would be a benefit would be the candy specifically for Rookidee. Following that, let's talk about the timed research that is going to be available during this event for $5. The bonus that you're going to get access to is going to be 2 times Hatch Stardust, so I guess that's pretty good if you're going for a lot of eggs, but again, I wouldn't really recommend it during this event. You're also going to get rewards featuring 5,000 experience, 20,000 Stardust, 1 Elite Charge Tam, and then you're also going to get encounters with Galarian Weezing, Azumarill, Diggersby, Clodsire, and then more. I don't know how many more Pokemon you're going to get, but those were the featured ones that they wanted to mention. In terms of value here, I do actually think this ticket is worth it, specifically for that Elite Charge TM alone, not necessarily for the hatching bonuses. I mean, that's kind of like a nice cherry on top, but I wouldn't like specifically buy this ticket for just that bonus. You can also gift these tickets to your friends, and I'm sure you probably know someone out there who's just getting back into the game and could use one of these Elite Charge TMs. Now with that being said, if you want to know which Pokemon are going to be the best to invest your Elite TMs into, then check out this video on screen right now. It's also going to be linked down below. Now I do want you guys to keep in mind that this is going to be a timed research, which means it's going to expire at the end of the event. So if you decide to buy this, it's going to be really important that you get it done, otherwise you're going to let that Elite Charge TM go to waste. Same can be said if you decide to gift this to somebody too. Make sure that they play enough to actually get this done before the event ends, otherwise it's going to be a total waste. Next up, let's talk about the available raids during this event, then also just during this time frame. So let's talk about the 1-star raids. We're going to have access to Lickitung, Skorupi, Pancham, and Amora. Since the IV floor is going to be 10-10-10, most of these aren't going to be that good for PvP. That said though, Lickitung specifically not evolved to Licky is going to be really good for the Open Great League with an IV spread of 8-15-15. So if you happen to get like a 10-15-15 from the raids, this is actually going to be ranking really well still, and it's probably going to be worth powering up. So I mean, if you want to go for a good IV spread during this event, that's definitely an option. For everything else, probably not. Now as far as the rest of the month goes, we're going to have access to 2 legendary Pokemon. We're going to have the remainder for Deoxys attack and defense forms until the 24th of January. So let's go ahead and talk about that one first. So first of all, Deoxys attack and Deoxys defense. Neither of these Pokemon are really that good in terms of PvP or for the raid/gym meta. Deoxys attack is like a super glass cannon, so I mean, if you ever put this into battle, it's going to get 2-shot almost immediately, if not 1-shot. Now, in terms of Deoxys defense, this used to be pretty good for the Great League and Ultra League formats in PvP, but now it kind of ranks a little bit too high in both of those formats, so it's not really worth powering up. But I think when it really comes down to both of these Pokemon, the main appeal is going to be for shiny hunters, and then also just for main series game players, because this is one of the few ways to actually get shiny Deoxys in-game. Now, keeping that in mind, there is going to be a raid hour for both Deoxys forms on January 22nd at 6 p.m. local time. This is going to be a Wednesday. If you really want that shiny, I would strongly encourage you guys to check Campfire for any local meetups before this event, but if you want to remote raid these Pokemon, you could also use Pokegenie as well if that's more convenient for you. There's probably going to be a lot of people hosting lobbies during that time frame. Now, for those of you who are a little bit unfamiliar with how Raid Hour actually works, basically most gyms are going to have the featured Pokemon appearing and the raids are going to reset after about 25 minutes, which means you can essentially hit the same gyms again at the half-hour mark. It's pretty convenient if you only have a few gyms around you, and it's essentially how most players actually coordinate and plan their routes during these raid hours. Now, following the Deoxys forms, we're going to have Dialga in its regular form available from January 24th to February 6th, so a pretty long rotation here. Now keep in mind, Dialga Origin form is going to be better than its regular counterpart featured right now, so when it comes down to it, my best recommendation for this Pokemon is to use your free passes, right? You're going to have a lot of time to actually raid Dialga. stockpile that candy, either keep it to use for Roar of Time as an adventure effect, or you could also just use it to power up a Dialga Origin form in the future, and that'd be my best way of actually taking advantage of these resources. I don't really recommend powering up a regular Dialga, it just isn't as worth it. It is still really good in the Open Master League if you get the Hundo, but I mean, that's only if you get the Hundo. There's like a specific breakpoint or bulk point where if you have like a 98, it's just not good enough, so keep that in mind if you actually are going to be doing these for more than just a candy. But once again, guys, we get 2 free raid passes every single day. I think you should definitely be doing these, if not some of the megas, which we'll talk about right now. Now, Mega Gallade just had a raid day on the 11th, but if you happen to miss that, I strongly recommend doing this just because it's going to be a pretty good Pokemon to have for candy bonuses, not necessarily meta relevance. Like, it's decent to use as a Psychic type Mega, but honestly, you have better options out there, especially just regular Mewtwo is a better option. But once again, candy bonuses being a Psychic and Fighting type is definitely going to be the main appeal here. And what's actually funny is that the next Mega rotation is going to have the exact same appeal. It's going to be Mega Medicham. So again, like, this isn't going to be used as a raid attacker, but it's essentially just going to be used for candy bonuses once you get it to Mega level 3. Now, what's actually cool about Mega Medicham, though, is that you can actually have your Mega also be your Great League spread. It's a super extra large Pokemon build that requires being powered up to level 50 for the Open Great League, sometimes with Best Buddy, sometimes without Best Buddy. Either way, this Pokemon is going to be pretty much maxed out, so there's no reason to build a Hundo, for example, for the Mega Evolution. Just doesn't make sense. Just use your Great League spread and you should be good to go. Now, simultaneously during this event, we're also going to have the Go Battle Week ongoing as well. So this is one of the best times to actually farm Stardust in the game, guys. Your max sets for GBL go from 5 to 20, which is essentially 100 battles per day. And I know what you're thinking, that's a lot of battles to get done, but hear me out on this, alright? You're going to get 4 times Stardust from the Wind Rewards, and ideally you should be at rank 20 at this point to really maximize those Stardust gains. If you're not, just use this opportunity to actually climb up as much as possible, getting a bunch of Stardust along the way. Now, on top of that, you're also going to get a free timed research, which is focused on battling. This is going to award you with a free Elite TM. I don't know if it's going to be Elite Charge or Elite Fast, but it's going to be one of those two. So definitely make sure to do it. You're also going to have the IV floor removed from the GBL encounters, which is actually pretty nice if you're going for like any good PvP IV spreads, especially because there's like a lot of Pokemon from those encounter rewards that can potentially be really good. And then finally, the active league rotation is going to be Great League, Ultra League, and Master League, all open formats, which in my opinion is the best way to actually do these Go Battle Weeks. I am so happy that they decided to do this moving forward, or at least like they have done this consistently for the past few Go Battle Weeks. Now, I totally understand 100 battles is going to be a lot, and I told you guys to hear me out, so here's what I have to say about that. If you use the 1-4 strategy, basically win 1, lose 4, you can get through these battles incredibly quick. It's still going to take a while to do like 100 battles, like that's 20 sets, right? That's going to take some time, but still, the amount of Stardust you get from just doing a 1-4 strategy, it's incredible, guys. You can get like 200, 300, 400,000 Stardust without start pieces. So imagine if you actually use star pieces, that'd be crazy fast. I think I've done like 5 to 6 sets, maybe even like 7 sets within 30 minutes just from doing the 1-4 strategy, and I honestly accumulated tons of Stardust. I always save my start pieces for these types of events, so keep that in mind. Like, as a free-to-play player, this is the event that I really focus on. If you want to get a bunch of Stardust, you got to take advantage of it. Next up, let's talk about Ralts Community Day Classic, which was recently announced. So this is very exciting in my opinion. Ralts actually has a split evolution from its second stage form Kirlia, which can either go into Gardevoir or it can go into Gallade if it's going to be specifically a male. You also need to have a Sinnoh Stone to do the Gallade evolution as well, but I mean, this is going to be a really good comm day, guys. Like, I tried to get a Shundo from trades for quite some time. Actually, I just tried to get a good IV shiny Ralts from trades for quite some time. Had a lot of bad luck, but eventually I got a 98% IV with 14 attacks, so the attack could have been 15, that would have been a lot better, but at the end of the day, I'm still very happy with my shiny lucky 98. That is definitely going to get powered up to level 50 at some point. I do not expect to get a Shundo during this event. My Shundo luck has been really, really good, like just the past year, I would say. We even got a Shundo Sprigatito from the recent comm day, which honestly I was not expecting at all. Anyways, let's cover the event details right now. So first of all, this event is going to be taking place on January 25th from 2 to 5 p.m. local time. The bonuses are going to be slightly different than a typical comm day because this is going to be a classic. You're still going to get increased Ralts encounters, 3-hour lure modules, and incense. The boosted shiny rate is going to stay the same at 1 out of 25. This is increased, guys, from the typical shiny rate of 1 out of 500, so that's a massive jump right there. Definitely take advantage of this event if you love the shiny Ralts family. The special bonus bonus is going to be 1/4 hatch distance, and you're also going to get 5 free rolls from snapshots. Essentially just take a picture of your buddy Pokemon, back out, and the encounter will appear. Rinse and repeat that 4 more times. So you may have noticed that we're not going to get the typical trade bonuses during this event, and the same can be said for the increased candy and then also increased extra large candy chance. So if you really want to grind out this event properly, you're going to have to make sure you have the right Mega Evolution, and ideally at Mega Level 3. Now on top of that, we're also going to have a timed research featuring 4 Sinnoh Stones as the reward. This is honestly excellent considering that Gallade does require Sinnoh Stones. You can get a Great League spread, Ultra League spread, possibly even a Hundo IV spread. Next up, let's talk about field research. Now this has slightly changed over the last 2 months, so you can still get more encounters of the Ralts by doing these, but in terms of the event-specific ones, there's 2 different types now. So typically the encounter ones are going to be to catch 3 Ralts. That's going to be standard across the board. This is still a great way to potentially get a Hundo or even a Shundo, as you're going to have the shiny boosted rate and the IV floor is going to be 10-10-10. This is so much higher than you can actually get from wild encounters, so in my opinion, the best way to get a Shundo is going to be from field research, outside of typical callouts that you have during the event. But that's more dependent on your local community. Now as far as the Hundo CP you want to be looking for during Ralts Com Day, it's going to be 231 CP. Now the other type of field research quest you're going to have throughout the day is going to be the one to get special backgrounds guaranteed. Now these quests are actually a little bit more difficult. They're specifically focused on interaction ones, so you're going to have trade 1 Pokemon, win a 5-star raid battle, and then complete 3 party play challenges. In my opinion, I understand why some players are not super thrilled about these specific tasks, but at the same time, the whole point of Community Day is to go out there and play with other people. If you're upset that you have to actually, play with other people during these events, then I just feel like you're missing the entire point. So yeah, these tasks are definitely designed for that aspect. Now we do also have the special research ticket available for $2, and with the start of the new year, we also had a price increase for this special research ticket, and also kind of a reformat of the structure as well. So many players were not happy with this initially, but honestly, I don't think it was as bad as they made it out to be. I was actually gifted the ticket for Sprigatito Com Day, and so going through that, I did feel like the premium items were pretty good. I think people initially took this as you're kind of paying for more special backgrounds, but you also get 1 star piece, 1 incense, a rocket radar, and a premium raid pass. So when it comes down to it, the value is going to be 440 Pokecoins for just those items alone. The backgrounds are honestly just a bonus at that point. So with that being said, I still think these tickets are worth it. The value is definitely there, and you can also give these tickets to your friends as well. I think it's a really fun experience, for casual players especially. And if you don't decide to buy the ticket, I think that's perfectly fine as well. You're not going to miss out on anything crucial, but I've been gifted these tickets many times from fans and locals, and honestly, I always enjoy going through them. Now we're also going to have these special event boxes featured during this event as well. The main one to pay attention to is going to be that 1350 event box for the Elite Charge Tam, but if you actually want to get an even better deal, I would go through the web store, because you can actually get the special research ticket plus an Elite Charge Tam for only $5. Really, really good deal if you just want to focus on those 2 items alone. Now keep in mind, you can get free Elite Tams from GBL every single season, so if you don't want to actually spend money on getting this Elite Charge Tam, that would be your next best option. Now with the event details out of the way, let's quickly talk about the exclusive moveset and how good Gardevoir and Gallade is going to be in Pokemon Go. So first of all, the exclusive moveset is going to be Synchronize, or Synchronoise. You're going to have from 2 to 7 p.m. to evolve this to get your Gardevoir or Gallade with this moveset. But honestly, I wouldn't recommend that. This moveset isn't an upgrade for either of these Pokemon, it's actually a downgrade. So ideally, you would actually want to wait until after the event ends at 7 p.m. to evolve these Pokemon to actually get them without this moveset. But that being said, this could always get a moveset buff in the future, so I could just be saying it's bad right now and then that changes in 2 months. That could totally happen. If you want to play it safe, I would recommend evolving your Gallade specifically with this moveset. Now going back to Gardevoir in the Raid/Gym meta, let's talk about this real quick. So Gardevoir is going to be a great Fairy type attacker to have. It also has a Mega Evolution, which makes it the best Fairy type attacker in the game, and even though you're not going to be able to get Mega Energy during this event, I still think it's going to be a great opportunity to get yourself a good IV spread, possibly even the Hundo. Now for those of you guys who are watching this who are newer players, or maybe you're just returning players coming back into the game, I would strongly recommend focusing on catching and evolving high level Ralts, so anything that's level 28, level 30, ideally level 35 if you do have that Windy Weather boost, that would be incredible. This basically helps you avoid spending extra Stardust and building a Fairy type attacker raid team, which is honestly a major advantage. Save that Stardust for legendary Pokemon and do not spend it on Ralts unless you end up getting the Hundo. Now following that, let's talk about Gallade, which is basically the opposite of Gardevoir. It's not going to be great for raids, but if you do have Mega Gallade, it's not a terrible option to have as a fighting type or a psychic type, so getting the Hundo could definitely be useful as a Mega Evolution. but Gallade's main appeal is actually going to be in the Great League and Ultra League metas, specifically with the moveset Psycho Cut plus Close Combat and Leaf Blade. So notice how I did not mention Synchronize there. Gallade is definitely on the glassy side, but it dishes out a ton of damage. I have been hit with a Leaf Blade so many times, man, it's so frustrating. But that's a good thing, right? Because that's how you know Gallade is actually a really good Pokemon. So with that being said, that's pretty much everything you need to know for Ralts Comday Classic. Both Gallade and Gardevoir are going to be excellent options to have in their respective metas. I'll most likely put together an additional video going over some additional tips and tricks to help you guys get fully prepared for this event later on during this week, but as of right now, I think that's everything you essentially need to know in case that video doesn't come out. We are not done yet though. We actually have 2 more events to go over. The next one is going to be the Lunar New Year from January 29th to February 2nd. So the bonuses from this event are going to be an increased chance to get lucky Pokemon from regular trades, an increased chance to become lucky friends with your best friends, and then finally you're going to get increased shiny odds on Ekans because it's going to be the year of the snake. So with that being said, let's go over the wild encounters next. So like I just mentioned, shiny odds on Ekans is going to be increased. That's going to be the first Pokemon. You're also going to get encounters with Onix, Snivy, Darumaka, and Dunsparce. And then the rare encounters are going to be Gyarados and Dratini. Definitely some good Pokemon here. Darumaka is going to be a good fire type attacker. Snivy is going to be a really important Pokemon to focus on for the upcoming Univator, where you can evolve it to get Frenzy Plant, the exclusive Comday moveset. So focus on getting some good IV spreads for this guy. And then you also have Dunsparce, which is pretty good in the Great League PvP meta. And then finally you do have Gyarados and Dratini, which are both good respectively. Now from this event, we're also going to have special 2km eggs, and there's going to be an increased shiny chance to get a shiny Nose Pass specifically from these eggs. Not sure why that Pokemon was featured, but I guess it is what it is. Not particularly good for anything. Anyways, the featured Pokemon are going to be Makuhita, Nosepass, Meditite, Duskull, and Skorupi. Next up, let's talk about the free timed research. So this one is going to be worth focusing on, guys, because you're going to be able to get some experience, some Stardust, but most importantly, 10 Zygarde cells. Given how long it takes to collect Zygarde cells for the full evolution, I strongly recommend taking advantage of this and making sure to get it done. We're also going to have a paid timed research available for $2, which is going to award you 2 lucky eggs, 1 incubator, and then encounters with Ekans and Nosepass. I don't believe the Nosepass is going to be boosted from this specifically, but Ekans will be shiny boosted, obviously. Now, in terms of the shop value here, you're barely getting your money's worth on this one, and also considering that you can encounter these Pokemon in the wild, I really would not consider this ticket worth it. And that pretty much covers the Lunar New Year. I would strongly recommend taking advantage of as many trades as possible. Try to find a trade partner. Just do your 100 trades every single day. The increased chance of honestly getting a hundo this way, guys, is phenomenal. So expect to see a lot of your friends getting hundos during this event, because if you actually roll a lucky Pokemon, you have a 1 out of 64 chance of getting a hundo that way. Those are super good odds, some of the best odds in the entire game. Finally, our last event is actually going to be on February 1st, so technically after the time frame of this video, but I just figured I'd include it as well. It's going to be for Gigantamax Kingler Raid Day, or Max Battle Day, however you want to call it. I think Raid Day just fits better. Now this event is going to be taking place from 2 to 5 p.m. local time, and the bonuses are going to be as follows. We're going to have the max particle collection limit raised from 800 to 1600. We're going to get 8 times max particles from power spots, basically going from 120 to 960, super good. And then you're also going to get 2 times max particles from exploring, going from 300 to 600. And there's also going to be a reduced walking requirement to get these max particles, going from 2 kilometers normally to 1.5 kilometers. Not a drastic change, obviously, but still a good one. Now, most of these changes have remained the same from Gigantamax Lapras Raid Day, which was definitely a step in the right direction from what we had previously. Now, on top of that, you're also going to have an event ticket for $5, which is going to award you with 1 max mushroom, 25,000 experience, 2 times experience for max battles, and the MP collection limit is going to be raised from 800 to 5,600. So a massive jump right there, which I think is where most of the value comes into play. So with the addition of the max mushroom, I honestly don't think this ticket is worth it. Maybe I just don't really care that much for the max mushroom or for the MP collection limit being raised. I mean, yes, that's pretty much how you are going to get your money's worth, but I just don't see it as worth it. But I'm also in the boat where I only really think you need 1 good Gmax of each respective Pokemon, and you can easily accomplish this by just using your free max particles and then lucky trading them with somebody else if you don't get a good IV spread. That's essentially what I've done, and I've had no issues so far. Anyways, that pretty much covers everything I wanted to go over in this video. I wish you guys all the best of luck for the rest of these events during the month of January, and if you want to actually know which are going to be the best shadow Pokemon to hunt right now in Pokemon GO, especially with that TM Frustration event upcoming, then check out this video right here.